In Lebanon County, there exists a place known for centuries to locals as Ghost Hollow. Strange things have happened near this rural stretch of road along Mill Creek. In 1876, a teenage girl lost her life in a horrific carriage accident just outside the tiny village of Millbach, halfway between Newmanstown and Shaefferstown. According to those who witnessed the entire incident, a frightening and malicious apparition was to blame. 18-year-old Catherine Leininger, known to her friends as Katie, was one of 11 children born to George and Mary Leininger. With her long black hair and ivory skin, Katie was arguably the prettiest girl in Newmanstown, and she was highly regarded for her fine manners and intellect. During the summer of 1876, when the village of Shaefferstown held its annual country fair, many young men came forward and asked Katie to attend, but she chose to go with her friend, 22-year-old Ada Hoffman, and Ada's brother, Henry. Katie's parents had no objections. After all, the fairgrounds were only 5 miles away, and Ada's brother was an expert carriage driver, so what could go wrong? On Saturday, June 17th, Katie, Ada, and Henry arrived safely at the fair and spent an enjoyable afternoon, until a summer rainstorm sent them all scurrying for cover. By the time the storm had passed, it was already dark, and by the time Henry Hoffman had hitched his father's carriage to the horse, it was already after 11 o'clock. The night had grown very dark, and since the drive was as dangerous in the nighttime as it was pretty in the daylight, the friends of the young ladies begged them to remain in Shaefferstown until morning. Katie and Ada politely refused, stating that their parents were expecting them home and they didn't want to cause them any worry. They left their friends and proceeded on their journey toward home. They had gone about a mile along a small stream known as Mill Creek, near the old ancient graveyard in the village of Millbach, when they saw a strange, unearthly-looking object ahead of them on the road. Although it was exceedingly dark, Henry knew that he was near a ravine known for many years as Ghost Hollow. All of a sudden, the white glowing object came nearer and frightened the horse. Henry, who was about 14 years of age at the time, later recalled that the glowing phantom jumped upon the horse's back, which set the animal running at a frightful pace. The horse raced into the black night, and the young lady screamed with terror. 3/4 of a mile past the village of Millbach, a small bridge crossed Mill Creek. The horse dashed madly to one side and struck a stone heap, partly demolishing the carriage. The animal was frightened and began to rear and plunge. Henry leaped out and carried the reins with him, but the horse darted ahead over the rocks, and Ada Hoffman, seeing that her brother had already jumped, cried out that she too was going to jump. But Katie Leininger said, "No, for heaven's sake, keep your seat." There was a short struggle, but Ada, who was older and stronger than Katie, managed to break free and jump out of the carriage. However, her dress got caught in the wheels, and she was thrown against the rocks. Katie was trapped in the carriage alone. The horse dashed ahead, and when Katie heard the sound of the rushing waters of Mill Creek, she made up her mind to leap. But she jumped from the front of the carriage instead of the back, causing her foot to get caught in the running gear near the forward spring. One can only imagine the horror she must have felt when she realized that she cannot free herself. Her body struck the ground as the bewildered horse plunged madly on towards Newmanstown, and the unfortunate young lady screamed in vain for help. There weren't many houses near the road, and it was now past midnight, and everyone was all in bed and sleeping soundly. The horse, who knew his way home, dragged the bleeding and mangled girl at least half a mile. Once on familiar ground, the horse trotted slowly past the Leininger home and stopped in front of the Hoffman house. George Leininger, the father of the young woman, was sitting at home waiting for his beloved daughter to return. He heard the Hoffman horse pass with its carriage, and he went to the front door to have a look. It was too dark to see, so he grabbed a lantern. Outside, on the road, he saw a trail of blood, which he followed to the door of the Hoffman home, where the horse was standing, hitched to an empty carriage. He slowly approached the nervous animal, and when he raised his lamp, he made a gruesome discovery. The body of his daughter, twisted and mangled in the gears of the blood-soaked carriage. The sight was a horrible one. The back part of Katie's skull was rubbed flat from being dragged over the unpaved dirt road. George Leininger's cries of anguish awakened the neighbors, and, armed with lamps and lanterns of their own, they followed the trail of blood in the direction of Shaefferstown to locate Ada and her brother. Along the way, they found ringlets of Katie's long black hair, and a deep groove in the middle of the highway from where her head had dragged on the ground. Amazingly, Henry Hoffman suffered only a few scratches, but his sister, Ada, sustained several broken bones and severe internal injuries. But she would go on to make a full recovery, and lived until the age of 77 before passing away in Lancaster County in 1934. As for Katie Leininger, she was laid to rest at Mill Creek Cemetery in Newmanstown. So, what was the glowing object that jumped on the back of the Hoffman horse as it passed the historic graveyard in Millbach? Until his dying day, Henry insisted that it was an evil demon. Perhaps the restless and tormented spirit of a murderer was buried in consecrated ground, condemned to roam Ghost Hollow until it could claim another victim to take its place. Today, the old dirt road between Shaefferstown and Newmanstown is Route 419, and according to those who have walked along the highway after dark, sometimes it is still possible to hear phantom hoofprints on dark, dreary nights, and the muffled cries of a young woman. Yes, it would seem that Katie Leininger has joined the legion of spirits who call Ghost Hollow home.